Hi, I'm Jill Choate, and welcome to our rib constructed intensive course that's going to encompass 3 months. And we are going to start out with a melon basket using some just plain hoops. Well, I have a hard time making things plain, so we're going to jazz it up a little bit. But to start us off, I want to talk to you about what you're going to need for class as far as tools go, and just some basics about rib constructed basketry before we start. One of the things that you're going to want to do is make some what I call sliped edges on your steaks, ribs, and rib constructed basketry. So there's a couple ways of doing that. One of them is by using some basketry shears, and other people like using pruners. Now these are Falcos and they're expensive, but it's up to you. These are not as expensive, but you do need a good pair of shears that are sharp, and it needs to be basketry shears, not fabric shears. You're going to need some kind of a measuring device. You also need an awl, a long tapered awl. Some people call these ice picks. Ice picks work, okay, because we're going to be marking things, a pencil, okay? And the other thing is a weave right tool. And for whatever reason, I do not have a weave right tool in front of me, but I'll show you that here soon too. So those are the basic 5 tools that you're going to need for starting off this course. And it is important to have them. If you don't have them, you can buy, other than the Falcos, you can buy a toolkit that contains those 3 essential things that you need on the website. So, and I'll put a link below so that you know where you can get that at if you don't have it. We're going to start out this morning just kind of basic stuff here. It's important to have warm water for soaking your weavers. One thing I tell people is I don't put a whole bunch of weavers in warm water. And the reason I don't do that is I can't weave fast enough so that my reed doesn't get discolored. So I might put 2 or 3 pieces in warm water. And then I can weave relatively fast depending on which area I'm working on. If I'm working on the body, or I'm working on maybe some design work with color. One thing I will tell you, if you are using color, don't put color in with natural, because it's going to bleed a little bit. And then your reed will take on the color, or it'll taint it a little bit. The other thing about water is, depending on the amount of minerals or hard water that you have, it will discolor that reed. So that's another reason why I don't keep it in very long. For instance, there's a lot of contaminants in water in Fairbanks. And when I had a whole bunch of reed in there, it turned it kind of a murk. Well, murk's not the color we're looking for in a basket. So anyways, safe side, put 2 or 3 pieces in warm water, and that way you don't have to worry about it. Just real quick on hoops, and you do need to measure these to find out where you want to put them. When you're making a melon basket, it's going to be, melon-ish looking. How's that? So that means that we're not going to have any big lobes off here. That'll be another basket. So we're going to use the bottom and the sides as a measurement for how much we're going to come out here. If you want it more squarish, you can make that bigger. But for us this time, we're going to try to stay within the parameters that the hoops are giving us. And we're going to have a real basic lashing, a 3-point lashing. I have to jazz the handle up. I can't just do a boring basket. So that's the way it goes. Anyways, one thing I want to tell you is you always put your handle on the outside when you're starting this. Now we're going to work on the handle a little bit before we start and put some work on it just to jazz it up a little bit. But in this course, I'm going to talk to you about all these little things that I do to make your basket easier, to make it a little bit different than normal. How's that? How to jazz up your basket, how to use different designs. That's just kind of our quick introduction, and we're going to get started on this basket. But I wanted to welcome you to the course and let you know that these videos for this course will be passworded. You will have to have the password to get on the site, and I ask that you keep that within yourself. Usually I will open it up to the masses for a free video, but because this is something that you paid for, we'll keep this one passworded. So let's get started. Okay, so here's the utensils that we're going to need. Either or. This is a weave right tool, but it's not a weave right tool. It's just my weave right tool, but a regular weave right tool will work. And I use a heavy duty one. So pencil, awl. Okay, so this is what we're going to start with. And we're going to get started on our hoop. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to real quick measure around the circumference of this hoop, and it ends up being about 31.5. So that's like what, 15.25, right? So if I want to do 15.25 or a half of the hoop, right? So I'm going to make one mark here with my pencil, and then I'm going to come over here and do about 15.25. Okay, so that gives me the point on each side where I want to put the hoop in. And remember, the handle always goes on the outside. And if you look here too, you can see real close here, you can see where they put in that overlap for this hoop. Well, I don't want to put a lot of pressure right there, even though I just did mark it there. I want to go opposite of that. So even though I marked this here, I'm going to change that because I didn't see that overlap. If you can see the overlap on the pressure, it's better to keep it down at the bottom so that you don't have a whole bunch of pressure right on that from the other hoop. So let's do this again. So actually what I can do is just take that point up here, right? Yeah, that's older. So when you do this, the part of this is eyeballing, part of it's measurement. The big thing is don't put pressure on an overlap, and make sure that the handle that you're going to be working on is going to be on the outside. So what we're going to do is we're just going to mark it so we know beyond a doubt that we have this even, right? So if I put it right there, I'm at 15. Okay, so I'm going to come over on the other side. And I'm about 15.5. So I need to bring this over a little bit. So that's going to be about 15.25 on one side. And I'm going to mark that right there. And 15.25 on the other side. And that's about right. So I'm going to mark this with a pencil on both sides here. So, and I am going to, I'm not going to weave right yet. I'm going to work on the handle before I do that. But when I get ready, after I've brought this down, I'm going to, whatever I'm going to do on the outside, I'm going to bring it past this point, okay, and past this point here. And then I'm going to do a 3-point lashing so you won't see anything. I don't have to do it down here, but I do need to cover up the handle. So this is going to be the handle. This is a rim, this is a rim, and this is just the bottom of the basket, okay? So if I wanted to have more of a bottom and less of a handle, I would come up some more, okay? If I wanted to have vice versa, more opening here and less bottom down there, I would do the opposite. All right, but that's where we're going to start, and now we're going to work on the handle. Okay, so as we start off on this, I'm going to be using 3 pieces of material. I have kind of a spacer that goes on top here. I've just got that temporary held in place. Then I've got the material I'm going to use for a warp, which in this case is 3/16. And then I'm going to be weaving with some cane. So what I want to do first off is I just want to get this held in place here as I start. Okay, you don't want a real long piece because it's just going to be a pain. So 3 wraps usually does it. You see that I've got a tail on the back. Okay, and then I've lashed over it 3 times to hold it in place. Okay, make sure that's nice and tight. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to start on my design. All right, so here we get her set up for a handle. Here's the spacer. This is our warp weaver, okay? And these are going to be our actual weavers. So this is cane. This is actually 11/64 because I thought the 3/16 was too bulky. This is a piece of 1/2 inch. I've wrapped it 3 times with a tail in the back, and then I trim that tail off to hold it tight. When you put these guys in, they're just right underneath there so you don't see them. Okay, so now we're going to start that weave. We're going to come from the left first, and we are going to go underneath the spacer. Pull that through. Okay, and then I'm going to come down here. I'm going to wrap my warp weaver, sorry. If this gets dry, take a spray bottle with some warm water and spritz it. So here's my second one. Okay. I want the shiny side of the cane outside. So when I stuck those in there, I put it face down so that when I wrap it around, I get the shiny part on the outside. Okay, every time you do this, you need to take a wrap on your warp weaver. Okay, and one more on this side. So my cane's on the outside. I don't think I put that one in right. And underneath we go. So there's the first 3. Every time you go underneath that spacer with a cane, piece of cane, then you're going to wrap your warp weaver, okay? So then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do this side for 3. Here's one. And remember, before I do that, I got to do an X, or I mean a wrap. And then I'm going to put that up there. And I'm going to make sure that I don't twist my cane, and then I'm making sure that everything's nice and wet, which right now it's not real wet. So I'm going to spray these a little bit. Spray my warp weaver a little bit. Okay, and every time I do a cane underneath my spacer, then I've got to do a wrap, right? And I've got one more on this side I've got to do. Nope, gotta go. Sorry. Gotta go underneath my spacer. Pull that through. Make sure everything's nice and flat and tight. And then I'm gonna do that warp weaver again. So there's one set of that, right? So then I'll do this 3 set over here and all the way over until I've got my halfway point, okay? And that's gonna be the wrap on this handle. So let me get a little bit more done and we'll come back and talk. Okay, so you can see I've almost got this done. This is what it's looking like. Couple things that I want you to remember while you do this. Make sure that you have a really long wrapper. It's easy if you have some of these cane like something breaks. It's easy to push something inside here underneath the spacer and the rim to start a new one. You can't really do that and make it look nice with a warp wrap. So take the longest piece that you can of this 11/64 and get it wet for your wrapper. The other thing I want to remind you of is it's easy when you get going to you get in the weaving zone, you know, and you think, oh, well, I'm just going to keep going with this. You got to work from the bottom 3 up. So whatever on the bottom, remember it's right 3, left 3, right 3, left 3. There's a couple times that I was doing this, I think, what's wrong with that? Oh, I kept going with the same thing. So remember that it's a crisscross, okay? And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down a little bit further with the weave. And the reason that I do that is because it gets covered up anyways. So it's better to have a little bit more to cover up than it to be short. So I'll probably come down to about right there with this. Okay. So that's what that's looking like. You always want to make sure your weavers are wet. These guys, it's not so critical that they're super wet. You can see this is pretty hairy, so I'll have to singe that. But that's a nice looking handle, and it's nice and strong. Okay. And ours won't be this, but just think if you had like a dark weaver or a navy weaver and you had that cane on top, how much that would pop. Okay. So for your next basket, or maybe you do it in space dyed, that would be very pretty too. Anyways, so options for your next one. Let's get through this one first, and we're going to come down here, and I'm going to finish this real similar to how I started this. And when we get down there, I'll show you how that looks. Okay, I've gone just about as far as I want to go on this, and I think it'll be covered either way. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to just wrap this about 3 times, very close together. And actually, I'm going to loosen that up a little bit. And you think, what? What do you mean you got to loosen it up? The reason I'm going to loosen that up is because I need to thread that back through there. So if you have a big tail, you can cut it. And I want to do this from the back. I'm going to go under about 3. And like I say, if it won't go under, loosen it up just a little bit because you're going to tighten it up in a second. This is where that good old Weave Right tool comes in. So you can get that up through there so you can grab it a little bit. And like I say, if I would have loosened up that wrap, it would have gone a little easier. Come on. Good wrapping there, Jill. Oh, I see I got something going up. Yeah. All right, so then I'm gonna tighten that up on the inside and tighten up my wraps as well. All right, so that's not going anywhere. Plus I'm gonna weave over top of it. Now, these guys here, I'm just gonna trim these short. And use that leftover cane for another project. So as close as you can get it, trim it up. I could back that up a little bit so you don't see even that, but I don't think it's gonna be a big deal. I think it's gonna get covered anyways. So there's my handle, okay? Now, one of the things that we're gonna do with the rim part of the hoop, I'm gonna stick that in there and see what she looks like. I made my marks, right? So I know where it's gonna be at. And I wanna make sure that when I put this on, it's about right there, okay? So, actually I'd probably come up a little further or I'm gonna have a very shallow basket. So probably about right there. So you can see I came down a little further than I needed to, and that's okay. What we're gonna do is we're gonna do the rim wrap or the 3-point lashing, but one of the things that I wanna show you I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna do some kind of braid. I haven't decided whether it's gonna be this or that on the outside of the basket once I get it done. In order for me to do that, I need a piece of false, what the heck did we call that? Kind of like your false front. I don't know, I forget what I called it. But anyways, what we're gonna do is we're gonna wrap this around here. And I know how long I need to make it because I put those cool little pieces there, right? So I'm gonna bring this around, and the reason that I'm not making it completely round, and I have done that in different instances, is because I want it to have some give here. So as I pull it up, if I need some room, I want it to have some give there. This is going to be covered up anyways. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take some tie wraps just to hold this in place temporarily. So, and I won't put it on there. I won't tighten it up really tight because I just, let's see, I've got some overlap there and I'll have some overlap here. And what that does is it enables me to pull it out if I need it, basically, to do that. Okay, so this is experimental. We'll see how it works. So let me get these two put together and get this set up. I'll show you what it looks like, and then we'll do that lashing. Okay, so I have put my spacer wall, I guess, on top, and I've just loosely put some tie wraps to hold it in place. This is overlapped so that I got some give room on both sides. All right, I can see that I did go down a little further than I needed to because I actually do want to make a melon basket. I'm going to bring this up just a little bit, and I also marked on the inside to make sure that as I shift this around, I still am centered with the inside of the hoop. Okay, so I'm okay with how that looks, and I am going to make it up just a little bit more. I want more basket on the bottom here, okay, because it is a melon basket. So maybe just a little bit more, and you can see how much that I really did not need to do there. So like I say, because I'm not doing anything down here, and I can always unwrap this a little bit if I wanted to and cut that back. So okay, so let's talk about that lashing, and let's start on the other side. So you are going to, I'm going to move this over a little bit. You have a smooth side and a rough side. You want the rough side facing you, and it's going to come across the back here. Okay, so if this was a cross, right, you're going to start in the upper right hand corner, and you're going to come across and then up, and that grabs that tail that you left so that it's not going anywhere. Okay, so the first part of your X goes from the right to the left, and then behind all, and then from the left to the right. Okay, so from there, then what you're going to do is just a 3-point lashing. 1, 2, 3. Goes on top of a rim, goes underneath the bottom piece, and around the other rim. Comes back around. This time it's going to go in front. Okay, and you want to do this for about 3 wraps, and then we're going to go over and do it on the other side. So here's the second one. So when I'm coming from the right and going to the left, it's going to be behind the bottom piece, and when I come from the left to the right, it's going to go on top of. All right, so I'm going to do this one more time so that I have 3 wraps up here. Okay, and the reason that we're doing this, and the only reason that we're doing this, is so that we have a place to start adding ribs. Okay, and you'll see that in just a minute. So I want 3 wraps here, and I want 3 wraps here. Okay, so if I want one more wrap, then it would be too much, correct? And see how they're all kind of, what do you say, like a 4th overlap shown there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this, and then I'm going to thread that through this here, and that is what locks that in place. So that's one side lashed with the basket ear, these are called, okay? So then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and I'm not sure if I have enough of this, so we'll see. I want the rough side facing me on this, and I want the tail in the lower left corner. This is my first wrap, or my first part of my X. Starts from the right, goes to the left diagonally across, and then it grabs that tail right there and holds it snug. And then I go from the left to the right. There's my X. Now I'm going to do my 3-point. 1, 2, 3. I come around the rim. I'm going from the right to the left, so it goes underneath that rim piece, or the bottom piece of the rim. It goes around to the left, and this time it's going to go in front of that bottom piece. And then here's my second one. I'm going right to left, so it goes underneath that bottom piece. And when I go to the left to the right, it goes on top of it. Remember, we wanted 3 wraps on each side, and I think this is gonna make it. Yes, indeed it is. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna put a little bit of a point on that, just makes it a little easier. And I'm gonna take my Weave Right tool, and I am gonna open that up. And I'm going to pull that through. Yeah, I poked a hole in it. I didn't want to do that. So I'm going to open that up just a little bit. And I'm going to push that through, and then I'm going to tighten it up. Okay, so here's the 3-point lashing on this side. Here's the 3-point lashing on this side. Now it is time to add the ribs.